Welcome back, everybody. We are now on episode 10. Count them, 10 fingers, 10 episodes of Betting the W. And we are so excited because this is a very special episode. At the end of this episode, we have our first ever interview, our first ever guest in person, Caroline Fitzgerald of Goals Sports. It's going to be a great interview. Hang around to the end to see that. We do got a lot of good WNBA talk. Free agency has been crazy. Talk about the business of women's sports, on which she is an expert. It was awesome. It was a fun time.
A lot of good chit chat.
Probably our best half of an episode ever. So let's top that right now. Mention the WNBA. I do want to say real quick, because we do get to it with Caroline. Obviously, big moves. Stewie has a new home in New York. I think we all kind of saw that coming. A big surprise, Candace Parker going to Las Vegas. That was a shocker.
Yep.
I do want to say, because I can't resist a good I
told you so.
I told you so parade. Both the Ngumuke sisters, Nneka and Chene, are going back to LA. Chene coming out of retirement to rejoin the Sparks. I called that on last week's episode, and then just yesterday, in the early afternoon, there was talk about Allie Quigley taking a year off from the W, and I said, on Twitter, you can go find it, I said...
He's got the receipts, man.
I put it out there on the public so that you all know that I was thinking it. I said, Courtney Vandersloot is going to the Liberty, but the Liberty have spent all their cap space and don't have Allie Quigley money right now, so Allie's taking a year off basketball. Then she's going to come back with the Liberty so that they don't have to live in different cities.
Yeah. So check back next year, and he'll be
I'm half right.
Spot on.
I'm halfway there because Courtney Vandersloot signed with the Liberty. That was after we talked with Caroline, so we didn't get to that. Liberty are just adding everyone they could possibly find. It's crazy. Like, we really are. Like, I was like, the super team talk is a little premature with John Paul Jones and Sabrina Ionescu, but...
No, this is great for the game, though.
It is. It's so good, and it's putting pressure on other teams to spend. I can't wait for our WNBA preview because I want to throw some hot takes out there. I want to be a bit of a contrarian. All right, but I'm gonna hold on to them for now because we've got college ball to talk. And man, a lot of stuff happened in the college basketball world this week. We did it last week. We got to do it again. We are leading off with Iowa because they once again had the win of the week. Kate,
go Kate!
Congratulations. Kate got a win. I was the only one without a win this week. But that's all right. I'm glad Kate won. I'm happy for my friend Kate.
Thank you.
Iowa takes down Maryland in College Park. They were at Maryland, correct? No, they were in Iowa. Still, Iowa's got to be the toughest place to play in the country right now because when the Hawkeyes are at home, they're good on the road, but they're even better at home. They are just so ridiculously good. They scored 92 points against the number 8 team in the country.
Yeah.
Like, nobody else is doing that. Caitlin Clark has 240 balls against ranked teams. Nobody else in the country has even done it once.
No, not in D1.
And we talked about it last week. Like, I think that Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark were separating themselves from the pack last week. I think we'll get to LSU, but I think I am 100% confident my vote goes to Caitlin Clark. I'm not splitting it anymore. I'm with Caitlin Clark because she's doing things that nobody else in basketball is doing right now.
Yeah, I'm one foot in that Caitlin Clark bucket. We'll see what happens with Angel Reese if they can stay undefeated, and I might swing my vote. But Caitlin Clark right now doing stuff unheard of.
And honestly, like, the early season inconsistency has really scared me, but I think Iowa is proving that they are actually made for the long run. I think we talked about that. Like, are they made for the tournament? Because if their strategy of scoring 1 million points and allowing 1,000,001 points is not, it's not that sustainable, but I think they're proving that they can play enough defense to get by with the incredible offense they have.
Yeah.
And Caitlin Clark and Emma Sonano are just the best duo in the country right now.
Undoubtedly.
It's insane. So that's Iowa. They had a huge week last week into this week. Number 6, we might see some movement. Who knows? You really can't predict what the AP poll is going to do at this point.
Yeah, especially not after last week.
What a disappointment. You disappointed us, the AP poll.
And, well, actually, we should see some movement with the big game this week, South Carolina, UConn.
That's right. Yeah, that's going to be huge. We'll get to that one, too. There's a lot to get to this coming week. More Big Ten. Ohio State got to win, which is extremely important because they had lost 3 in a row after starting 19-0.
Yep.
20-3. Do we think that they can reignite this flame, get back where they started this season?
Yeah, they got to recapture that magic from earlier. I don't know, man. I don't know. I loved when you were saying early they're number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
But right now, after 3 straight losses, I feel like I'm off the Buckeye bandwagon, man.
Yeah. They lost 2 of their 3 to really good teams.
Yeah.
Like, Iowa's really good. Indiana's really good. Lost to Purdue was confusing. But overall, I think Ohio State is a good team, but this is a really concerning stretch run. And they looked unbeatable for a while. Now they're looking very beatable, and they're in the best league in the country, which is scary.
Maryland coming up. Indiana coming up. Scary.
I mean, we have to talk about Indiana. Every week I say it, they're just like a really, really quiet, excellent team.
Yeah.
Like, they're 4 in the country, and there's no reason they shouldn't be there. We talk about teams that we overlook. Like, I definitely overlook Indiana, but they're here. They're at number 4. They have a good chance to make a run to the Final Four.
And whenever we talk Play of the Year, we always leave Mackenzie Holmes' name out of it.
Exactly.
But she's in that running too.
She's one of the
I
best
feel like
players.
we got to put some respect on her name.
Yeah, she's one of the best players in the best league. For Indiana to be holding their own like this in the Big Ten is super impressive. I always poke holes and I say, can they match up with the bigs of the other teams? But it really hasn't mattered.
No,
it hasn't mattered yet. And I think after this weekend is obviously going to be the game of the year. We keep teasing it. We'll get to it. But Iowa at Indiana, February 9th, and Indiana at Iowa, February 26th.
Huge.
Are going to be huge. Those 2 games will probably decide the 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and they could let us know which of these 2 teams is more legit. So I think even though the Big Ten is so good as a whole, we might only see 1 team make a run to the Final Four. That's not a prediction, but they have to compete with South Carolina. They have supposedly LSU.
So many good teams.
Right. There are a few really good teams outside the league that are going to be a threat and that are going to be 1 seeds. So Big Ten probably will only get one seed in the NCAA tournament. So the other teams are going to have a tougher run.
Yep.
But we'll see who that 1 seed ends up being. I'm really excited. These 2 games are going to be huge because these 2 teams are like 2 of the 2 best in the best conference.
No doubt.
We talk about the other teams that are at this point likely to get 1 seeds. Both come from the SEC. Listen.
Breaking my heart.
We have been really high on LSU. Still undefeated. Still haven't lost. Still a good team. But that matchup in Columbia is looking scarier by the day.
Yeah. I mean, I think we got really lucky that the AP didn't put them at 2.
Yeah, I think...
If they put them at 2, they would have lost.
If they were the number 2 team in the country, they would have lost last night. Instead, Georgia took them to overtime. LSU got the dub, 5-point win. They have the clutch players to get it done. Yeah. I think their defense let them down big time by allowing Georgia to stay in that game. That was so cool. Imagine if Georgia had won after mocking the Angel Reese Sully. LSU, they're built to win, but there's a really, really good team in their league that they have to play, and they're struggling with teams that we, laugh at, like the SEC is not that good. Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, these are teams that are all hanging in with LSU. Really tough. Speaking of Tennessee game, that over came so close. It was I from the start. If you don't remember, my pick last week was not a winner per se, but an over. I picked the over in LSU Tennessee. Obviously didn't know what it was because it was Friday. They ended up setting it at 145, which then moved to 147 at game time. I've never seen a total that high in women's college basketball.
If you follow us on Twitter, you would see that that's the second highest line either teams have seen all year.
Just a ridiculous amount of points. I rode with it because it was my pick, and I got to trust my past self. I'm not going to be blindly picking overs anymore because that was a heartbreaker.
Oh my god.
It was even more heartbreaking that they got close and didn't get it. They were about like 143 or 142, something like 144. So they were right there, right in the neighborhood of the over. Heartbreaker. Whenever a game's on TV, I just want to bet the over. It's a system play. That's a big cat system play. Is if the game's on TV, I bet the over. But that was a tough one to hit. It's the polar opposite of Duke totals, which we'll get to. But a tough over to get, and it did not get there. South Carolina hasn't really stumbled. No. So we talk about the future path for LSU. This is a South Carolina team that their worst game was at Mississippi State, where both teams were under 60 points, which is a weird one. I think Mississippi State's just a hard place to play, but South Carolina is so good, and they're so good at home. I'm nervous. Officially nervous.
Officially nervous on my LSU undefeated take.
Yes.
But they got a big week coming up, South Carolina.
Right. That's the thing, is they aren't looking out to LSU quite yet because they have a beast to handle this weekend in UConn.
And I've said it before, Auburn trapped me.
Auburn.
Come on.
Take advantage of a big opportunity for your program. Prove that the SEC has something besides those two. Now, move to the ACC. A really confusing league as it has been all season. Just this week, NC State, last weekend rather, was number 20, and they upset number 7 Notre Dame. Notre Dame has looked really good in conference play, and then NC State, who's looked pretty inconsistent, goes in and beats them. Then, there's a few days later, last night, NC State, now number 15, loses to Georgia Tech, who is like the only team worse than them is Pitt, I'm pretty sure. Oh, Pitt and Virginia. Georgia Tech is not a good team. That was just their third ACC win. So what is NC State, like, who are you? Who are you? What are you? Like, they were a Final Four team last year, top 10 team coming into the season, I think they were out of the rankings, then mid-20s, up to 20 this week, up to 15, and now they're going to be maybe unranked? I don't know. I don't know what to make of
Well, if you lose to Georgia Tech, you deserve to be unranked.
That should be a relegation. That should be, along with the single-digit quarter, losing to Georgia Tech should be a relegation.
Immediately.
Just so confusing for NC State. But the one thing that we can trust, that is consistent, that never lets us down, Duke unders. Are you kidding me? Vegas is in hell with these Duke totals. They're like, oh, well, they keep going under, so let's set it at 117. It's like, brother, that's not going to be low enough for Duke to go over, bro. 97 total points against Pitt last night. And Pitt's a bad team. Pitt's the worst team in the ACC.
They are not good.
But Duke's not going to blow anybody out. It was only a 9-point game at the end. 97 total points.
Yeah, and you said it. The line was set at what? Minus 23. Duke.
Yeah, Duke by 23. Duke's not going to win by 23. What were they expecting the final score to be like? 43 to 30? Like 43 to 20? Whatever it is, they're not going to score enough points. They only scored 53, so they would have had to hold Pitt to 30.
There it is.
Which is good math on my part. There we go.
Quick math, baby.
Yeah, if you ever see a Duke line that wide, take the underdog, please, and take the under for the love of God.
If you're not hitting the under, I do not know what you're doing at this point.
I can't wait to watch Duke win like a tournament game, 60 to 45 or something. Like, it's gonna be hilarious to see that on a national stage.
I'm really excited for this Notre Dame game.
I think
see if this is sustainable.
Can Notre Dame do the impossible and score a lot of points with Duke?
Let's see it.
Duke's defense is so good. And I think this will kind of answer our question, who's the best team in the ACC? We've been asking this all season long.
Who knows?
Coming into this week, you would have said Notre Dame.
Yep.
Now they're tied in the rankings with Duke. Duke's the best defensive team in the nation, I think.
Yeah, no doubt.
What's going to win out? Offense or defense? I think that's going to be huge, huge matchup. We've got some we've got some deciding matchups coming up in these
Yeah.
major conferences this week.
We're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty indeed. In the Pac-12, we're getting to some conferences that there's not a whole lot to say. The Pac-12, we talked about lower-ranked teams in this conference being suspect, and we were absolutely correct. Like, number 25, Colorado, loses to USC.
I think this USC team's good, though.
USC is mad
I
good.
think they're good.
You'll see it in my walk-off pick. Little teaser. I like USC to keep up the hot streak, and, like, you're exactly right. Like, this doesn't even feel like an upset.
No.
But technically, Colorado was ranked and USC wasn't. That's the only difference. The only thing that makes it an upset. And then number 19, Arizona, lost to Washington State. I'm not surprised. That's exactly what Arizona does.
Arizona is such like a non-team to me.
Exactly. I don't even know how they're top 20. They're like meant for the 23 to 24 type range. Like,
they'll live around there.
Yeah, they're right in the middle of the pack of major conference teams. And then, of course, you've got Stanford cruising since the USC loss. Utah won a nail-biter over UCLA this week. Was your pick, right? Was it?
No, I had a Colorado.
Colorado, that's right.
Yeah.
Utah won a close one with UCLA, though. UCLA, probably the third best team in that conference. We'll see how that shakes out. Stanford, Utah is going to be huge. I think they play twice. It's going to be a decider, but it feels like Stanford.
Stanford probably
feels like Stanford. Sorry, Utah. Utah haters over here once again.
We tried to give you some respect when you lost.
We did. We gave you respect.
Honestly, it's on you guys.
Yeah, what is that? Anyway, the Big 12, another one where I don't think anyone in this conference is really very good.
No.
Kansas State upsets Iowa State, which was frustrating because that was my pick before I switched to the LSU-Tennessee over. Trust your gut, please. I should have trusted mine, but I don't think there is a best team in this conference. A lot of teams that are floating around the middle of the pack, which makes me think that an experienced team like Baylor has a chance to make a deep run.
Yeah, and you'll hear it in the walk-off, but
our college basketball expert, Caroline Fitzgerald, is feeling high on Baylor as well. I think it says something that none of these teams are doing all that well in conference play. Baylor is not ranked, but they have experience in the postseason, so that can make a big difference.
And it's like if you can't prove yourself in conference play, I don't trust you at all going into the tournament.
Exactly. You need to be able to hold your own with the teams that you're grouped with. Speaking of, UConn out of the Big East is, again, no surprise. I don't think there is another good. I think Villanova is good, but they're not on UConn level. We've said it over and over again. The test of the season will be for UConn this weekend. Cox are coming to Hartford.
Not us.
No. We will be going to Hartford. So, technically, but anyway, we will be at the game in Hartford. Keep an eye on the socials for some in-game content. We will be documenting our travels over to Hartford. A big, big game at the Excel Center. Going to prove if UConn is really legit without their full roster.
That's the only thing that scares me. Like, I love this UConn team. I wish they were healthy.
Exactly.
Like, even a little bit.
This game would be so different.
Yeah.
And to finish up, we have some mid-major teams making some moves. USF, who I've been high on all season, I really like the Bulls. They moved into the top 25. I think they belong there. They probably should have been there all season. They are just a sneaky, sneaky team, and once the tournament comes around, like, watch out for USF. Some not so positive news from the mid-majors. Last night, we had a couple of upsets. The longest winning streak in the country. Jacks, Middle Tennessee, Lady Raiders, upset at the hands of UTEP last night. The Miners got the best of them. Number 21, probably going to be unranked next week.
Yeah.
Still trust them to win the CUSA, but the magical run of 16 straight wins has ended. And number 17, Gonzaga. We called it weeks ago. We did not trust them come tournament time, and look at this. Last night they lose to Santa Clara on the road. Called it. Saw this coming a mile away. I don't think that Gonzaga is built to hang with national powers, and last night it looked like they weren't even built to hang with the WCC. So, not sure what to make of this mid-major group. I think USF is the best out of them, but we'll see come tournament time which smaller school can make a big run.
I agree. Max hit the nail on the head. That's all I got.
No more to say. And now, we're going to throw it to ourselves yesterday, going back to the future, back forward to the past, our interview with Caroline Fitzgerald. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Not welcoming you to the episode because we filmed the first half yesterday. As you can see, we're in a different location with a third friend. This is Caroline Fitzgerald from Goals Sports. She is a good friend of ours and a friend of the program here at UMass Boston. Caroline, you can say it better than I can. Why don't you explain what Goals Sports is?
I would be happy to do that. Okay, so Goals. I started Goals. It's kind of evolved since it first started back in 2020. So it first started as an idea for a podcast. Mm-hmm. So I can very much relate to what we're doing here and what you guys have built. So it started out as an idea for a podcast because, I just selfishly wanted to listen to a podcast that was about the business side of women's sports, and Absolutely. I couldn't find one. So I had this idea, and I was like, all right, I'm going to start this podcast, but I've been working for 11 years now in the world. My background's in marketing and women and gender studies as far as my education goes, and as far as my experience goes, I've worked in marketing and sponsorship sales. And so the trained marketer in me was like, well, you can just launch a podcast. Who's going to listen to it? You need to do a little bit of pre-marketing for this podcast before you go out. So Goals started as an Instagram account officially, then a Twitter handle, then became a podcast, and now Goals has pivoted to become a sponsorship agency that is fully focused on women's sports. So basically what we do is we go out on behalf of professional women's sports teams and organizations and sell sponsorships to help them get more resources to hopefully close some of those massive gaps that we see between men's and women's sports. So we do that, but we also continue with the content. We put out the podcast, put out all the content all the time on Instagram and Twitter, and that's what Goals is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we love that you keep us up to date with all the leaps and bounds that women's sports is taking. As you say, there's no faster growing part of the industry than the women's sports industry, and we see that each and every day. I think just in the last year, I think there have been so many milestones that stand out. For me, biggest eye-opener, I was already a fan of women's sports,
sure.
But the eye-opener
your sweatshirt.
Well, as you can see,
available on goalsports.com.
There you go. Gotta plug the merch. Always gotta plug the merch. The biggest eye-opener for me that the industry was really catching up was that Women's College World Series.
Oh, yeah.
The softball championships in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching every game on national TV.
Yeah.
Every single game was a sellout. I mean, there's, the star power of Jocelyn Allo, but also,
oh, yeah.
You go to see her, and then you see every other talented player on the field, and the experience of it, mind-blowing. It's what were those big moments, and Damon, I want to hear from you as well, what were those big moments over the past year or so that, wow, women's sports has a draw for sure?
Oh my gosh, there were so many of them. I think that is definitely one of my favorite ones, because that's an example of apples to apples.
Yeah.
All things being equal, women's sports outperformed men's sports.
It did.
Full stop.
It outperformed the men's College World Series.
So love that example. There's an example I'm looking it up right now that just came out the other day. So the women's, the final of the Australian Open, which just wrapped up, the women's apples to apples again had 1.43 million viewers, men's 1.3. So again, another example of apples to apples outpaced. But there's just all these examples. I'm looking at all my data here because I like to hit the numbers.
We love the numbers.
But I think a really exciting moment, and obviously this is near and dear to your guys' hearts as huge college basketball fans, March Madness last year.
Yes.
So we saw women's March Madness viewership grew 81% compared to men's, which grew only 15%. So, like, the growth opportunity around women's basketball, unreal. At least just looking in the U.S., the NWSL is really, really setting some new standards for us. Just looking at the championship game alone, viewership was up 71%, almost 1 million people watched. And something to note about that is it was on at the same time as some major college football games. So there was some skepticism that, are people actually going to tune in? Or are they going to be distracted by these men's sports that are happening? And no, clearly people showed up.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of moments like that just sprinkled around. And it's just really, really an exciting time. And these milestones just continue. Every time we have a women's sports event, it's like you already can write the headline. You know it's going to break records.
It's the most predictable trend in sports, though. They just keep growing. And at an insane rate. You will never see a men's sports, unless it's a brand new league, you'll never see it grow by 81%.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Men's sports are great, but they're established. And if you're looking for the future,
the
future is absolutely women's sports.
And you talk about 81% in the Final Four, and there's clear carryover with
absolutely
every single game. You saw the PMAC the past 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Half.
LSU is selling every seat in the Pete Maravich Center every week now. And it's regular season basketball. People are catching on. This is not just for March.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fans who come for March, like you mentioned yourself.
Yeah, I gotta say, I look mostly in March. I like it contained.
Absolutely. But now they're seeing their favorite players in the Final Four. And the cool thing about women's college basketball is it's a cool thing and it's a problem at the same time, is that the players can't go pro until after their third year.
Sure.
Where the NBA has the one and done rule, which could even be, it's turning into a prep to pro thing once again.
Yeah.
But the women's players, they don't have the opportunity to go pro, which is cool for the fans because we get to see our favorite players come back year in and year out.
For sure,
and it's almost cool for the players too because they get that NIL money.
Exactly, and we could go all day, but NIL money is often better than a WNBA contract money.
It is,
which is a whole other animal. But college, women's college sports, is huge.
Yeah.
How do you see this is kind of just a question that I just thought of. How do you see professional women's sports? You mentioned the NWSL, I see women's college sports growing really fast.
Yeah.
How do we carry that momentum over into the pros?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you just touched on it, but part of the reason why women's college sports are growing so much is because of NIL. Because brands are investing in these women athletes at greater rates than they're investing in male athletes at the college level.
Yeah.
And I think that brand investment is helping to feed the amount of exposure that college women athletes are getting. And I think we need more of that at the pro level. So that's our whole purpose at Goals is right now women's professional sports receive less than 1% of sponsorship dollars. Not even a full percent, 4.4% is what they get. So we need that brand investment because with that is going to come a ton more exposure. A really good example of how brand investment helped increase exposure for the NWSL. We just talked about the championship viewership numbers. The reason why the NWSL championship was able to be on in prime time and get that $1 million people tuning in is because Ally Bank, a sponsor of the league, stepped up and paid for that to happen. Wow. So that's one example, but everything we yell about all the time at Goals on the business case of women's sports is how we need more brand investment.
Absolutely.
And that's really the key. So, I just think it's essential for building that infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We talk about another area of sports industry that is growing rapidly is sports betting.
Yeah.
That's obviously a lot of what we focus on here.
For sure.
We love to look at the lines. It was just legalized in Massachusetts.
Yeah, yesterday?
Yesterday.
And I think, if I read this correctly, former Olympian Angela Ruggiero was placed the first bet.
Did she?
Oh,
Absolute icon in women's hockey was the person that placed the first bet.
That is so cool.
We love that.
We've heard her speak at the tradition event last winter. She's awesome. So very cool that she got to place the first bet.
Yeah.
And soon it's coming to mobile so that we won't have to go to a sports book to place a bet.
Sure.
It makes it even easier. Right in March, perfect timing for the tournament. So with the expansion of sports betting, how do you see that impacting women's sports?
So it's huge, and I have all my data pulled up right here.
Love the data. Let's
go.
We love the data, courtesy of Shot Clock Media, who my sister runs Shot Clock Media, so a little plug for my
Shout
sister,
out.
Mara. There you go, Mara. So there's this one stat about sports betting that like we think about a lot, me and my sister, as we talk about this. So according to Nielsen, sports bettors consume 31% more sports content than non-bettors.
Yeah.
So think about that. If we're really trying to grow fandom for women's sports, to have this tool of sports betting that's like hyper engagement for fans, like you're literally invested, you have a stake in what's going on, it's going to make more fans show up. And as we see women's sports continue to get more exposure on TV, get more distribution, through streaming opportunities and even through social media, we're starting to see like a real bump in activity around women's sports betting. The two stats that I really love are for FanDuel. Their handle on WNBA increased 101% last year, and the number of WNBA bets increased by 270%. So that's like bananas. Those are crazy numbers. And then DraftKings' handle on women's sports increased 22%, and the number of bets increased by 61%. So, like, it's just a wide open space.
That is, like, unreal growth. We keep talking, we keep saying unreal growth. That's exactly what we're seeing on all sides of the women's sports industry.
Yeah.
And I can attest to the fact that, like, I just love sports. I watch them, whether I have money on the line or not. But a lot of people that I know are kind of casual sports fans.
Sure.
They want to bet so that they have something more to care about.
Yeah.
And, you talk about like, I'm not that interested in women's sports. You will absolutely, if there's a line, you will absolutely place money. And like, if we can get those people watching, I think it'll change their tune pretty quickly because they'll understand like, this is actually exciting.
Yeah,
like,
that's the interesting thing about sports betting is you got the sports bettors that you get interested in women's sports, and you can also get the women's sports fans interested in sports betting, and then merge those two worlds.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a huge opportunity to get new fans interested because, again, they're going to have a vested interest in watching. But on the other side of that coin, and to reference Angela Ruggiero's data that she put together through the Fan Project, so what we know about women's sports fans is that they're just a highly engaged group of people.
Yeah.
They are dedicated. So when you look at their fan behavior, they're very digitally active, very digitally savvy. They're loyal. They are loyal to brands that invest in women's sports. They see their fandom as a form of activism. It means more than just like cheering for your hometown team, because honestly, a lot of people don't have hometown teams that they can cheer for. I'm from Pittsburgh.
Well, we're about to have.
We're getting that WSL.
I know, I'm very excited for you guys. But yeah, they show up and they again see their fandom as activism. So knowing how engaged they are, they have this active rather than passive fandom. There's this huge opportunity to get more women's sports fans, existing women's sports fans, to be betting. So if any book or like any sports betting company is not looking at women's sports, I think they're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can talk about that. We're missing lines.
We are.
Need some more lines, guys.
It's so frustrating. As gamblers ourselves, like we want to see those lines, and we log on to DraftKings, like refresh. When is this this is UConn, Tennessee, like when is this line coming out? And it's like 2 hours before game time.
Yeah.
And we like to joke that we pay more attention than the odds makers because we win a lot of our bets because this line is kind of suspect, but it's like it really is like if you invest in women's sports as much as you invest in men's sports from a sportsbook perspective, like you will see just as much revenue because people will bet on the lines that are there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you talk to me. I'm sorry, now I'm gonna ask you questions.
Oh, good.
So do you think that you make more money betting on women's sports, or
I think so. So
or do you just make money, or how's it going for you?
I'm not like the world's best gambler. I place very small bets.
Okay.
I just kind of like to. It's more so about being right. So it's more like I called it. See, I put money on it. I knew it. I think it's a balance of knowing women's sports versus knowing basketball. I think my best sport is football. It's the
Okay.
Sorry, it's the sport that I watch. I know. It's the sport that I watch the most.
And we're talking about men's American football.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry for not clarifying. It's men's American football.
Okay.
That is the sport that I watch the most. So I feel like I do pretty well on that, but I also feel like I know women's sports really well.
Okay.
Better than maybe the public does. So I think I'm able to, or we both are able to sniff out a line that we are like, okay, I like this one a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
interesting.
I mean, it's hard to bet in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It is.
So,
sure. Yeah.
I like just getting out there on a walk-off segment, just told you.
It's nice to see a pick that you're like, yes, this is the one. This is absolutely what I know. I'm confident about this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to be confident because there's chaos in women's college basketball right now. Just every game, it could go this way or it could go that way. So many upsets, which is the exciting part about it. So that's why we do what we do, because it's so exciting.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have a whole other conversation so you can prepare me for my bracket.
Absolutely. There you go. A full bracketology. We cannot wait. We love to make a bracket.
Well, I have another question for you guys. So, clearly you are both personally invested in the betting side of the women's sports industry. I know this is part of what you do as part of your program here at UMass Boston, but why is this so important for you to cover? What's your goal of betting the W?
Yeah.
Well, you always talk about it. It's good business to be in the business of women's sports. So we were thinking, how can we be in the business of women's sports? And this is where we landed, where our interests merged.
Yeah. I think I am a creative. I am constantly thinking of ways that I can be creative with my love and my passion for sports. And I think I consume a lot of media, and I don't see enough media that focuses on women's sports.
Yeah.
I would say that most of the media that does exist about women's sports, like your show and others that we listen to, they do a really important job, which is explaining why women's sports matters, why to invest in it.
Yeah.
The athletes are incredible and the milestones are huge. But I never really hear people talking about the games, what goes on with the game, and it's a very different conversation. We talk
just
about
talking about sports,
right? We talk about
at the end of the day, it's just sports.
Women's sports are sports, but we talk about them in very different ways. So I wanted to create a platform where it's we acknowledge that these women are awesome and badass, and they do the coolest stuff, but on the court, if you have a bad performance, we're gonna talk about that too. We're gonna be honest about that. You gotta take the good with the bad, and if we think you're gonna lose, we're gonna bet against you. That's the way that sports fandom works, and hopefully not in a toxic way. Because I think that there are a lot of toxic practices with that. But I think competitive and toxic are two different things, and I think there can be a balance.
For sure.
And I would love to see that the competition in women's sports, people acknowledging that these women are competitors.
Yeah.
They are really great athletes.
Yeah. The head of ESPNW, Susie Petrowski, she always says, these women are dogs.
We say that.
She always says that. And then the head of Just Women's Sports, Haley Rosen, she tweeted right at the top of 2023. She was let this be the year that we normalize trash talking in women's sports. And it's yes, Haley,
absolutely.
Let's go.
No, we talked about that. We said, Caitlin Clark, dog. Emphasis on dog. These girls are dogs. And your competitors, Angel Reese.
I
don't know.
Bring her up.
She is the ultimate women's basketball trash talker, and people are oh, what are you doing? Talking trash is men's basketball players do this constantly and in bigger ways, and they don't hear anything about it. Angel Reese she's balling out, and she's gonna let you know. And especially when it's a close game, with Tennessee or with Arkansas in the past couple weeks, if she gets the go-ahead bucket, she is gonna let you know.
I don't know if you saw it, but she blocked a shot, one shoe on, holding the other shoe.
Unreal.
Stared down the opponent. And then she got teed up, which is let them talk.
Right, you're not going to stare someone down if you block their shot with one hand and the shoe in the other?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Diana Taurasi, that's one of the reasons why Diana is such a favorite, because she's kind of a villain.
Yeah.
Like she played a villain in the Space Jam movie with
Yes.
LeBron. Like she's a villain.
Exactly.
I got to see her play the last time she played against Sue Bird in the W this year in Phoenix. It was awesome. Talk about a sold out crowd, like absolutely packed house. And Diana, and I was like, I know she like talks trash, but like I'd never seen her play in person. I didn't know. So I'm sitting like right behind the Seattle Storm's bench. And so pretty close to the action, like the corner, and somebody on the Seattle Storm was shooting a 3 from the corner, and Diana blocked it. And she blocks it and like says right into the Seattle Storm's bench, like, get the out of here. And I was like, oh my God, Diana, I love you. It was great, like no holding back. And
That's
like
awesome.
people love that. Like we need these characters, like, and we need sports media to tell the real stories about what's going on and not like sugarcoat.
Absolutely.
These
There
women are.
are moments to say, wow, these women are incredible, like off the court, what
Sure.
they do, but then on the court, like they are competitors
Yeah.
and they want to be known as such.
Yeah.
And you talked about transition, you talked about WNBA and the competitive edge that's there. How about this like free agency that's going on? I want to get your thoughts on the recent moves.
There are a lot of people that are really upset about everything that's going on. And a lot of people that are really excited. You know, I think this is the thing that just happened, like Stewie signing with New York.
Yeah.
Super exciting. Super excited for Stewie, sad for Seattle. I'm so sorry to all my Seattle friends out there. But, you know, I think Stewie and John Paul Jones coming to New York is like a really special moment for the New York Liberty. Because it was just I think it was 2020, that the New York Liberty finally got out of the like community center that only hosted, had room for 2,000 people in the suburbs, far, far away.
Right.
And now they started playing in Barclays in 2020. Like, that's just 2 years ago, and now they're going to have this stacked team playing with them next year. Like, this is such a moment for the New York Liberty, and I'm just really happy for them that, you know, they've come so far in such a short time.
Absolutely.
And that franchise, and like obviously New York is like really the center of where a lot of sports business happens.
Definitely.
And so to have them have this incredible, exciting product with this star-studded lineup, I think it's going to be really great for the sport of women's basketball.
It's going to be huge.
And something you brought up was the small arena. Every WNBA game I've been to, the ones with the bigger arenas, they have more attendance.
They do.
And they're always packed.
Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy how that works.
It's crazy.
Kevin Durant said, don't hit them up for tickets. They're already sold out. Like, the Liberty games are going to be sold out. And I think it's a sign of a team that's invested in its players.
Yeah.
There's a reason players want to go there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of teams aren't really, treating their players how they should or, like, giving them the proper, like, not even like amenities, like the basic things that they need.
Totally.
So to see a team like New York invest in its players, invest in flights and in healthcare and things like that. There's a reason that players want to go there.
Yeah, it's like when Stewie tweeted out the thing about charter flights. That you knew she was going to Liberty because
absolutely
they're the team that they got in trouble for it. But they showed a willingness to do it.
Good trouble. That's the kind of trouble that draws attention to what we should all be doing.
Yeah.
I think they're creating a bit of a super team era in the WNBA, which is it's cool. We're going to see some teams struggle, but I think that there's also a lot of opportunity there to like prove them wrong and like come from lower in the spending bracket and really show out this season.
Well, here's the thing about the WNBA. There are only 144 roster spots.
Exactly.
So I say this all the time. Every single team is like an all-star team.
It
like
is.
the competitiveness of the WNBA is unmatched.
Right.
Like to men's. Like I really think that it is like the league of the most competitive athletes. So anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like I know like Stewie and JJ and like they're gonna have an amazing super team. But like any other team, like the like margin of like difference, and it's not that crazy. Right. So like truly anything can happen at any moment.
There are no scrubs in the WNBA. They are sure that they found the 144 best players.
For sure.
And I think that the biggest thing is going to be keeping them there, and then you're right. First of all, keeping them domestic side, and then expanding the league. Which fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Where do you guys want to see teams added?
Philly.
That tracks.
Obviously.
I think Philly's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen first. Yeah.
I think, I'd said we had like New Year's resolutions, what we wanted to see.
Okay.
I said Philly and San Francisco get teams.
Oh, okay.
That's
Interesting.
what I think.
San Fran would be huge. I think that there's a big market out there. I think the Connecticut Sun have worked really well. I think they did something strategic, which was plant their team in a region that already loves women's basketball because of UConn.
Yep.
So maybe like South Carolina, like there are no professional teams in South Carolina, but there's a market for women's basketball, 100%. So maybe, follow where the viewership is, like maybe like another Texas. I guess there's already Dallas, but they used to do really well in Houston. Like there's a lot of teams that have gone defunct now that they can bring back and do really well.
I think Toronto's going to happen.
That would be
And here's why I think that. Because in women's sports, our resources are so limited. We're just like doing the best we can with the resources we have. And the fact that we're playing this preseason WNBA game in Toronto, like you don't just like do things just to do them. Like they're clearly testing something. Like Kathy Engelbert, like everything is a test. Everything is like to collect data to make a business decision.
Yep.
So I don't know. If I had to bet, I'm gonna say Philly and Toronto.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
I
like
maybe
that.
Portland too. I don't know. We can talk about
Portland,
that.
You gotta get some West Coast love.
Yeah, seriously, the West Coast got to even out a little bit. So there are a million other things that we could talk about today, but we have Carolina's a very packed schedule, as do we today. So we want to get into our walk-off segment, which is how we always end the show. We always give a pick for the upcoming week. This sounds kind of stressful. I know there's no pressure. This could go really well or it could go really poorly, and at the end of the day, we just make another pick next week. So
there we go.
We will bring Kate in because this is going to be her week. I feel it.
This is it.
Kate's game hasn't been played yet.
Kate is still pending.
So this is Thursday. I'm riding with Kate. I'm riding with the Hawkeyes. I think they win against Maryland tonight, but you will know from the first half of the episode, whether they won or not tonight.
If I even show up, you'll know.
We'll know if there's a person behind the camera tomorrow. So, Caroline, would you like to... I don't want to make you lead off, so I'm going to have Damon start. Damon is the hottest picker on the show right now.
Okay.
6-3.
6-3.
Up from, we've won 3 in a row? Or
3 in a row.
He's hot right now, which is dangerous. I've been there before, I'm just saying. I'm trying to,
we had a little standing shake up too. I don't know if you want to bring that up or if I should.
Oh,
where's the trophy when you need it?
Oh, I left the trophy at home.
Well, I'm looking to stay hot. 6-3, first place. Don't lose it. Going Louisville, keeping my character development going. Louisville and HBL, winning over UNC.
You know I like it.
There we go.
You know I can't go against it. Louisville's been having a rough season, but just can't not believe in Louisville. You know me.
Yeah, big time players shop at big time games. That's what Haley Van Lith is, man.
All right, my game this week there are a lot of games that I love, which is kind of scary. That might be an indication of something bad. I'm gonna roll with USC at home versus Arizona. We know what USC is capable of at home. They ruined Stanford's perfect conference schedule. Now, ranked Arizona comes in, but I like USC in LA by a good margin, too. I think USC takes this one pretty easily.
Yes, sir. USC's hot. Love it.
They absolutely are.
That was terrible. Can we do that again?
It's too small.
She got the claws.
No. All right.
Anyways.
What's your pick? After you win your pick tonight, what's coming up next week?
2-6, soon to be 3-6.
4-6.
4-6 when you go 2 in a row.
There we go.
Ohio State over the Terps. Bucks over the Terps. They're in Maryland, but they can't.
Right.
Ohio can't lose 3 in a row. I
Well, they
cursed
did
them.
lose 3 in a row.
They can't lose 4 in a row.
Well, they won.
Well,
all right.
I like this pick. I think Ohio State's much better than the week they had last week. I think that Maryland, I keep suspecting that they're going to fall off the train a little bit, so I think it could happen this week.
If anything, I'll just buy a Maryland sweatshirt.
There we go. Hey, hedge your
Get
bet.
that Kate curse working.
Kate's trying to reverse the curse. And she's betting against the vibes.
Oh.
Does Maryland have a vibe? We can talk about that tomorrow.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if
that's-
Maryland has vibes anymore. Maryland might have gone mainstream. Anyway, that's a lot of conversation for tomorrow. Caroline,
Okay.
we'd love for you to finish us off.
Guys, I'm so intimidated right now. As was established earlier, I really get into basketball at March Madness time. However, we pre-discussed this, just so everybody knows. And, you know, based on previous performance in a winning history,
Yes.
winning tradition, a team that overcomes adversity time and time again.
Oh, yeah.
Game I like this weekend is I like Baylor over Iowa State.
There we go.
We're gonna be
Yes.
at Iowa State again on the road. Tough to win on the road, but Baylor always rises up to a challenge. So that's what I'm saying.
I love that pick. Love Baylor. Thank you so much, Caroline. This has been so awesome. We had so much fun here.
Yeah.
Everybody go follow Goals Sports on Instagram and Twitter.
Shot
Listen.
Clock Media.
And
Yeah.
Shot Clock, shout out
Media.
Mara. Yeah.
Listen to the podcast. Buy a little merch. You can see how nice it looks on me. It's going to look even
Nice.
nicer on you. Thank you so much, everybody. Go have a great weekend. See ya.